Everyone. Thank you for joining us. Hi, Professor Firth. This is a great day for voting, first of all, and also for announcing our improvements and plans for Boston's bike network and safe transportation all across the city. So I'm really pleased to be joined by a number of leaders from within City Hall, whom you'll be hearing from shortly, including Chief of Streets, Yasha Franklin Hodge, Chief of Energy, Environment, and Open Space, Reverend Mariama White-Hammond, Chief of Planning, Arthur Jemison, and community leaders, Chevelle Olivier from Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition, along with, who is joined here today by Vigorous Youth from the Coalition, Winnie and Sunny and Novelle, Elijah Evans from Bikes Not Bombs, joined by Antonio Venus Reeves, who will be speaking as well, representing our young people from Bikes Not Bombs, Tiffany Cogel from Ride for Black Lives, and Vivian Ortiz, Boston's bike mayor. And I see Professor Peter Firth in the audience and many, many folks from our cycling community here as well. I also want to recognize that Chief of Housing, Sheila Dillon, is here as well, who has been just an incredible, incredible ally in making sure that all of our planning is integrated. Many staff members from the Boston Transportation Department who have been juggling so many things, especially in the last few weeks. So thank you for all of your hard work and all of your work over many years. We're joined by our new Director for Boston's Green New Deal, Oliver, who's here as well. Is it officially his first week? Oliver Sellers Garcia, so welcome. And City Councilor Kenzie Bach is here in addition. So we were originally planning to ride over today to make our big announcement and arrive together in a convoy, but I have not yet gotten the bike fenders installed that I'm told are necessary so that you don't arrive wet all up and down your back riding in the rain. So I'm yet to get there, although I know many people in this room are experts and ride 365 days a year. I want to thank all of you for making sure that the safety of all of our road users, the sustainability of our planet, the economic mobility of our communities, the health of our families has been front and center over many years in Boston. We are still working to catch up to the progress that we need to ensure that Boston is a safe cycling city and a connected safe cycling city. We'll be hearing from many of our regular riders and advocates shortly. I have been trying to make sure that I can see everything happening from all different modes, especially during the Orange Line shutdown. So whether it's been on the shuttle buses or commuter rail or riding in, you see the potential for where we could be as a city with so much energy to make sure that we can get around and connect all the opportunities that we're creating. But you also experience the very real gaps and the very real safety barriers that our residents face on a daily basis. I do want to just, while I have everyone here, recognize that the city has taken on tremendous, tremendous work in supporting the MBTA during this Orange Line shutdown and making improvements that really go above and beyond what is needed in this emergency period to push for lasting change. And so in a very short amount of time, Yasha and the city's transportation teams have added dedicated bus and bike lanes, made blue bikes free across the region, replaced damaged sidewalks near shuttle stops and posted wayfinding signage to improve accessibility, and put up tents at shuttle bus pickup and drop-off locations to keep commuters dry and shaded from the sun. The past 2 weeks have also made clear that transportation activists in our community have been absolutely right that we need incredible infrastructure and systems change here in Boston. We have serious gaps and disparities that don't impact all of our communities equally. And when you look at which parts of our city aren't connected to safe, active, reliable transportation options, it is easy to see how transportation justice is racial and economic justice. At its core, transportation is about connection and belonging, about who we invite to explore our city, who we empower to be in all parts of our neighborhoods, who we connect to housing, open space, high-quality health care and education. And that's why today I'm excited to be announcing the launch of a citywide design process to bring safer streets to every neighborhood in Boston. It's just one of the many ways that we are putting federal recovery dollars to work, not just as Band-Aids, but with long-term solutions to promote the health and well-being of our residents. As part of that mission, we are adding 9.4 miles of bike lanes by next year to mend key gaps and expand our network. And we've set a goal to ensure that 50% of all residents in Boston will be just a 3-minute walk away from a safe, connected bike route within the next 3 years. In that same time frame, we will add more than 100 new blue bike stations, growing our number of bikes in that system by 40%. We'll also be building speed humps and raised crosswalks throughout our neighborhoods to calm traffic and slow down vehicles to make streets safer, not only for cyclists, but for pedestrians as well. Particularly around schools, parks, and libraries, this traffic calming is absolutely necessary to keep our community centers and our communities safe for young people and families. All of these changes will be documented and detailed as we go on the city's website, boston.gov/bike-lanes, boston.gov/bike-lanes. And we want everyone to be able to take advantage of these investments that the city is making, which is why we're committing to reach 600 women and gender-diverse adults in the next 3 years through our city's free Learn to Bike workshops and starting a $1.5 million rebate program for older adults and people with disabilities to purchase e-bikes. We are committed to building a Boston for everyone. That means making our city more accessible, more connected, easier and more fun to explore, no matter how you are getting around. Today, we take a couple steps closer to delivering on that vision with investments that will reduce emissions, relieve congestion, improve the quality of our residents' lives, and make sure that people's lives are protected. No matter what neighborhood you live in or how you get to work, school, or wherever you are looking to enjoy our city, we all deserve streets that keep us safe and connect us to our communities. Okay, un poco en español. Como ciclista de la línea naranja, en las últimas 2 semanas he experimentado con las diversas alternativas disponibles en ese momento. Tomar el tren de cercanías, los transportadores y, por supuesto, la bicicleta. Quiero dar las gracias a nuestro jefe de calles, Yasha Franklin Hodge, y a todo su equipo por el increíble trabajo que han realizado para asegurar que todos tengamos opciones de transporte seguras, accesibles y fiables durante ese cierre. En muy poco tiempo hemos añadido carriles para autobuses y bicicletas, hecho Blue Bikes libre en toda la región. Hemos reparado las aceras dañadas en las paradas de los transportadores y colocado señales de orientación para mejorar la accesibilidad. Y hemos colocado carpas en las paradas de los transportadores para mantener a los pasajeros secos y a la sombra del sol. Pero estas 2 últimas semanas han dejado claro lo que los activistas de transporte en nuestra comunidad han sabido durante años. Tenemos infraestructura de transporte increíble aquí en Boston, pero también tenemos algunas brechas graves. Y esas disparidades no afectan a todas nuestras comunidades por igual. Cuando se observa qué partes de nuestra ciudad no están conectadas a opciones de transporte seguras, activas y fiables, es fácil ver cómo la justicia del transporte es justicia racial y económica. En el fondo, el transporte es una cuestión de conexión y pertenencia sobre quién invitamos a explorar nuestra ciudad y a quién empoderamos a hacerlo, a quienes conectamos con viviendas asequibles, espacios abiertos y verdes y cuidado de la salud y educación de alta calidad. Por eso, hoy me emociona anunciar el lanzamiento de un proceso de diseño por toda la ciudad para llevar calles más seguras a todos los barrios de Boston. Este proceso es solo una de las muchas maneras en que estamos utilizando los dólares federales de recuperación. para soluciones a largo plazo para promover la salud y a la felicidad de nuestros residentes. Como parte de esa misión, añadimos 9.4 millas de carriles para bicicletas para el próximo año, para reparar las brechas clave y ampliar nuestra red. Y nos hemos fijado el objetivo de garantizar que la mitad de los residentes estén a solo 3 minutos a pie de una ruta ciclista segura y conectada en los próximos 3 años. En ese mismo plazo, vamos a añadir más de 100 nuevas estaciones Blue Bike, aumentando el número de bicicletas por 40%. También vamos a construir lomos de velocidad y pasos de peatones elevados por nuestros barrios, especialmente alrededor de las escuelas, parques y bibliotecas, para calmar el tráfico y mantener que las calles que rodean nuestros centros comunitarios sean seguras para los jóvenes y las familias. Pueden explorar los tipos de cambios que planeamos hacer y saber cómo involucrarse en nuestra página web boston.gov/bike-lanes. Y queremos que todos aprovechen de las inversiones que estamos haciendo. Por eso nos comprometemos a llegar a 600 mujeres y adultos con diversidad de género en los próximos 3 años a través de los talleres gratuitos de aprendizaje de ciclismo y lanzar un programa de reembolso de $1.5 millones para que los adultos mayores y las personas con discapacidades compren bicicletas eléctricas. Estamos comprometidos con la construcción de un Boston para todos, para hacer que nuestra ciudad sea más accesible, más conectada y más fácil y divertida de explorar con cualquier método de transporte. El anuncio de hoy nos acerca a la realización de esa visión. Estas inversiones reducirán las emisiones, aliviarán la congestión y mejorarán la calidad de vida de los residentes. No importa en qué barrio te encuentres, ni cómo vayas al trabajo, a la escuela o a donde quiera que vayas, todos merecemos unas calles que nos mantengan seguros y nos conecten con nuestras comunidades. Gracias. Okay. I will just read through the run of show. It is posted here as well, so everyone can just kind of remind folks of who's next up after them. But I'll hand it over to our Chief of Streets, Yasha Franklin Hodge, followed by Chief of Energy, Environment, and Open Space, Reverend Mariama Whitehammond, Chief of Planning, Arthur Jemison, Chevelle of Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition, Elijah from Bikes Not Bombs, then Antonio, Tiffany from Ride for Black Lives, Bike Mayor Vivian Ortiz, and City Councilor Kenzie Bach.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Wu. So first off, thank you all for being here today. I want to acknowledge the many folks in the city's advocacy community, the many community organizations and community members who work every day to try to make sure that we have safer streets here in Boston. I also want to say a profound thanks to the many people from the Boston Transportation Department who are here today. These are the folks doing this work every day, who have built the plan that we're announcing today, and who are out there every day trying to make sure that Bostonians can move safely by whatever mode of transportation they choose. So today we're announcing plans to build new protected bike lanes on more than a dozen streets in Boston by the end of next year. This will add 9.4 miles to our protected low-stress bike network and improve safety for all road users. We're also launching a planning process that will help us figure out the next set of connections to build after these, and to do it in a way that brings each of our neighborhoods into the conversation to help shape the changes that are needed in those neighborhoods. Biking is growing more popular in Boston. By our most recent counts, at some key streets, 10 to 20% of the vehicles during peak periods are bikes. And we're seeing this play out as well in our Blue Bike system. Blue Bikes has grown in popularity over the last several years, and it's become an increasingly important part of our regional public transit system. This has been on incredible display during the Orange Line shutdown, where the Blue Bike system has set record after record after record for ridership. The month of August was the highest ridership month in the history of the Blue Bike system. And just this past Saturday, we set an all-time daily record, I think the 5th or 6th since the Orange Line shut down, with more than 24,000 rides taking place on Blue Bikes in one day. And just to put that into context and to provide a little bit of scale, that's almost a quarter the number of trips that happen on the Orange Line during a typical weekday, and double the number of trips that happen on the MBTA's biggest bus line. So it really is a significant part of the transit system. E-bikes are also starting to play a much bigger role in biking in Boston. Last year, e-bikes were the best-selling electric vehicles in the United States, beating electric cars by a margin of 2-1. And what we see when we look at these e-bikes is that they're opening the door to biking for many people who could not bike before, whether that's older adults, people with disabilities, families, people who do deliveries for a living, are now having access to bikes because of the availability of e-bikes. I can speak from personal experience on this. We have 2 young kids, and we use e-bikes for everything from dropping them off at daycare to taking them to swim classes at the Y to even we did some back-to-school shopping on the e-bike this past weekend. It's a fun, low-stress alternative way to get around, and it means that our family is able to use a car much less often in the city. But the big picture here is one that, when we look at our transportation system, when we look at this vision for a Green New Deal in Boston, we know that we need change. We need to have more trips by transit, by walking, by biking. This is about our climate crisis. Transportation is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the country, and we know that we need to reduce the amount of carbon we pump into the atmosphere through the ways that we get around. But it's not just the global climate. Transportation has profound negative impacts on the local environment. This is an environmental justice issue because the air and the noise pollution that our vehicles put into our neighborhoods disproportionately impacts communities of color here in Boston. And it is about growth in the city. If we are going to continue to grow and thrive, we cannot choke off the city with ever-worsening congestion. We need to move more of our trips onto other modes of transportation. So bikes will be an important part of this change. And we know that for that to be real, we have to make biking more accessible to more people. And doing that requires more safe infrastructure for people to use. Every bit of research we see shows that when you build safe infrastructure for people to ride bikes, more people choose to do it. A MassInc poll from last year showed that 50% of the respondents said that if they had a safe bike lane in their neighborhood, they would be more likely to ride. And so this is about us building that possibility for people. Protected bike lanes, though, aren't just for people on bikes. As the mayor said, the things that we do when we build a protected bike lane make the streets safer for all. They reduce speeding by adding speed humps, by reducing lane widths and slowing down traffic. That's good for not only people outside of cars, but people inside of cars too. We shorten the crossing distance that people have to traverse when they're trying to get across the street and improve visibility. This is especially helpful for people with mobility impairments. Ultimately, the work that we do to build protected bike lanes results in calmer, more organized streets, and that gives benefit whether you are on bike, on foot, or in a car. So we are excited for the 9.4 miles of new bike lane that is being announced today. But as the mayor said, this is also about closing gaps in our network. And we really were very deliberate. Rather than focus on maximizing the number of miles we built, we focused on building the most connections. Right now, if you ride a bike in Boston, you will often find it is a disjointed experience. You will be on a safe route or a path and suddenly find yourself in a busy intersection or riding in heavy traffic or dodging illegally parked cars. This is unfortunately the reality we force people to face, and that discourages many people from riding. We do have some incredible resources here in Boston, the spine of connectivity with the Emerald Necklace, the Charles River, the Neponset River, Southwest Corridor, right? These are huge assets, but they are only valuable when we connect them to where people are coming from and where they need to go. And so that is what this work is focused on, is building those connections, giving people access to jobs, parks, schools, friends, community centers, and so much more that they need in their lives. And we're measuring our work, but not just in miles or number of speed humps, but in the experience that people have, especially the experiences of people who are not well served by today's infrastructure. Does a new rider feel comfortable getting on a blue bike for the first time? Do older adults feel safe walking to the grocery store in their neighborhood? Can teenagers enjoy the freedom and access that having a bike provides to them? Can a parent feel comfortable letting their kid walk to the school bus or even riding a bike to school? Success is measured in the experience that people have when they go and they use our streets, and that is the work that we are holding ourselves accountable to, in addition to the metrics and the miles that we're building. I believe that Boston can be the best city in America for biking and walking. We have a growing community of riders, a compact footprint, and an expanding network of safe routes. And our job right now is to fill in the gaps, to both improve safety for those who ride today, but also to make biking an option for more people in the years ahead. So today's announcement, I think, is a big step forward. It represents an acceleration of that work, and I'm really grateful and excited to be here today to share with you our plans for the next year and beyond. So thank you very much.
Good morning. Before I get started, I also want to send a shout out to our Chief of Equity, Mariangeli, who is here with us, Mariangeli Solis-Severa, who is joining us this morning. So, as was said, I oversee the Environment Department, and of course I have many reasons to support bikes as a low-carbon possibility for transportation for many folks. As was said by Chief Franklin Hodges, transportation is a major source of greenhouse gas and a major source of pollution. Having grown up in an environmental justice community and living right now in a heat island, this is a key and important thing that we need to address. But I want to take just a quick moment to say that for me this is also personal because of two people. During the pandemic, like many, we gained a few pounds. And my parents and my husband and I shared two cars, one of which died epically on Columbia Road with the carburetor falling out and scraping along the ground. It was pretty embarrassing. And we had to figure out what we were going to do next and what we were going to think about for transportation. At the same time, many of us were disconnected. We were finding ourselves into Zoom call after Zoom call, and my father and a few of the men at his church started a biking group that started meeting up in a COVID-safe way, biking around the city. Many of us were driving a lot less, and so for them, it was a safe way to get around. But as more people get back on the roads, I think about people like my father, a black man who just turned 70 last December, who would ride his bike much more if it were safe to do so. I also think about myself, when I was biking as a young person and got to the point where I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore because I was afraid of getting doored or having someone hit me. And so while climate is a core motivating factor for why we need to make these shifts, I also want to name that everybody should have the right to get around our city in a safe way and not to feel like they're taking their lives in their hands. And the second person I think of is my good friend, Reverend Laura Everett, who is a minister who is often available to the bike community when someone dies biking. And so I hope that as we do this work, that Laura will continue to ride her bike, that maybe she'll bump into my dad along the route, but that we won't have to have any more ghost bike ceremonies in the city of Boston, because people will feel safe and protected. And with that, maybe all of us could stand to slow down just a bit, to get out of our cars just a bit, to feel safer walking and moving, knowing that we are protecting our lives not just from collision from a car, but also from the collision of climate change that we are facing more and more every day. So I'm really excited by this vision that's been put out, really excited to support it, and our entire cabinet stands behind what's happening with the Streets Cabinet, and we look forward to collaborating and making this a possibility. Thank you.
Good morning. So it's great for me to be here today as well as your Chief of Planning and representing the Boston Planning and Development Agency. I want to say thank you again to Chief Franklin Hodge, not only for his comments, where he got to speak about a lot of the things we share in common, but he and his staff have done such an outstanding job during the interruptions with the Orange Line. It's a chance for us to say thanks to him for all that hard work that he and his team are doing. Listen, I want to focus on a slightly different facet of why this is such an exciting day. Making neighborhoods stronger it takes a lot of different aspects. Bicycle infrastructure is one of them, and that's the one we're focusing on today. But it's exciting to me that we're making this investment because it's happening in the context of renewed focus on neighborhood planning. We have plans underway or restarting in East Boston, Charlestown, Mattapan, and in Alston Brighton in the Western Avenue area. We're going to be finalizing these plans and implementing this bike infrastructure in the context of renewed community participation and work on planning. This is going to make it possible for us to make sure that when communities are engaged in a planning process, that all the different facets of what makes a neighborhood great are beginning to come together. It's housing, the sort of small business environment, the way that streets support that work. A chance to bring all those things together is critical. One of the things that I think you've heard up here is when all those things are working together, we have safer streets. And the safer streets aren't just from the bicycle infrastructure, although I'll talk about that in a second. They're also from the raised crosswalks and the speed bumps and the other things that happen. They're also a key part of a signaling system to people about where our priorities are and where it's safe to travel. And it's also a key part of, as I think Chief Franklin Hodge mentioned, when you're trying to talk to your grandmother or someone else about why bike infrastructure is important and why it needs to be part of what happens in your neighborhood district, focusing on the fact that your grandmother's distance across the street is going to be narrower, where she has to be in conflict with cars, and that all the signals from the way that the streets are painted and changed send signals to drivers and bicyclists about the importance of safety where they're traveling. This isn't just about bicycle infrastructure. This is about safety, and it's about making our neighborhoods the kind of places that they need to be. One other key aspect that I want to focus on is to double underline something that Chief Hodge said. It's becoming a day-to-day occurrence for me in my work when I'm talking with development interests and communities about how we grow. We have huge and fantastic opportunities to grow the size of our housing portfolio, to grow the size of different industries in our city. But increasingly, that potential is mitigated by the transportation network that we work with. Every time we get a new person to change mode and move from using a car to using a bicycle, public transportation, walking, any of the range of things that many folks can fully participate in with this new bicycle infrastructure, we're making it easier for the city to grow in a healthy way and to invite more of those businesses in and to keep them here, because the transportation network can sustain them, not just in the old ways that we know how to do it with more parking and so on and so forth, but in the new way that we have to grow if we're going to capture this business and also have the chance to lead the way as we have historically in fighting climate change. It's absolutely essential. So I'm thrilled to be here today to sort of underline the message that Chief Franklin Hodge is sharing, because it's not just important to bicyclists, it's not just important to the future of our neighborhoods and the grandmothers and aunts and brothers and sisters that we are hoping are going to use those places. It's also critical to the way that we grow and our competitiveness. So I'm thrilled to be part of this, and I'm looking forward to seeing Yasha out in the neighborhood streets with me as we're doing our neighborhood plans, telling the things stories he and Mariama told up here to day-to-day Bostonians, so everyone knows just how crucial this is. Thanks again.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chevelle Olivier, and I wear three hats. First, I am a Mattapan resident. Second, I am a business owner of a community engagement firm called Consult Leela, where we engage young people in the planning processes about complete street designs and the benefits these different street designs bring to walkers, bikers, and those who take public transit. And lastly, I am the executive director of Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition. I'm joined here by three of our young people, Novelle and Sunny, who are back there, and then Winnie, who will share a few words about her biking experience. At MFFC, our mission is to promote health and healthy behaviors by improving the nutritional and physical activity environment for Mattapan residents. Our vision is for Mattapan to become one of the healthiest cities in Boston, where our streets will be clean, safe, walkable, and bikeable. Some of you may know Mattapan continues to have the highest rates of health challenges that includes hypertension, obesity, and diabetes. And one of the ways that MFFC tries to decrease these health challenges is through our physical activity and our youth development focus areas. Back in 2010, there was a move for the city of Boston to become more bike friendly, and the vigorous youth ages 14 to 19, did not want Mattapan to be left out of that. And so in 2011, they created a free biking event called Mattapan on Wheels with the following goals: bringing more awareness to the city that Black and brown people do bike in the Mattapan area, and that we need safer infrastructure to do so, alternative ways of traveling other than just driving in cars, but also getting one's bodies moving. And then lastly, youth development and youth leadership. Our youth are the ones that help to plan the event, but they also get to experience leading 60 to 90 or hundreds of different experienced cyclists in this event. Many local cyclists have supported our young people and MFFC to realize our vision of walkable and bikeable streets, and to help to make a downward trend in the health challenges Mattapan faces. And so I do want to invite Winnie up to share her experience. And again, the young people of Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition are the ones that are spearheading our biking movement for our organization. Winnie?
Thank you, Chevelle. So my name is Winnie, and I'm part of the Vigorous Youth Program at Mattapan Food and Fitness. And this summer, I was able to lead one of the bike routes at Mattapan on Wheels. And I got to see how excited and enthusiastic the community of Mattapan and the surrounding neighborhoods were about biking. And biking is a fun and sustainable way to get around the city, and it should be accessible to everyone in Boston. And of course, Mattapan on Wheels was an event that got to showcase everyone's excitement to bike. And I think it's definitely important to not leave behind the communities of color in planning for the future of biking in Boston. And I'm excited to see how the city includes every community of Boston in the future of biking in Boston.
Thank you, Winnie. MFFC is happy to be invited here to speak about bicycling, but it's important to note that biking is not just about biking, especially in the community of Mattapan. Biking intersects with environmental issues like climate change and pollution that was talked about earlier, mental health, how one accesses food, healthcare facilities, and the basic need for housing. We at MFFC, we understand this and welcome opportunities for partnerships around the issues that our mission does not focus on. We want to make sure that our residents' basic needs are being met. With these changes that are happening closer and closer to Mattapan, MFFC hopes that residents will become more involved in creating transportation options that accommodate all and not those who just drive. We want what the City of Boston plans to do for those who walk, as well as those who enjoy our libraries and many other amenities in the Mattapan area, because it is a wonderful thing. MFFC can visualize what those changes would look like in Mattapan. We cannot wait to see those resources for those who walk, bike, being built in the Mattapan area.
Opportunity to serve in multiple roles at Bikes Not Bombs, from youth apprentice to youth director to board member, and for the last 6 years as executive director. Becoming part of this world has changed my life for the better. I've witnessed the incredible growth of the organization, and at the same time, Bikes Not Bombs has been a huge part of my leadership journey. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley once said, "Bicycling is at the intersection of many forms of justice: environmental justice, economic justice, and racial justice," and I wholeheartedly believe that. I've come to deeply understand and appreciate the power that bicycles have to enhance and transform the lives of individuals and of communities. As a trained bike mechanic, I deeply appreciate the connections between social activism and bike repair. From systems thinking to problem solving, there are so many parallels. I believe everyone deserves the freedom to choose biking as a safe mode of travel. But we've got to admit, that is just not the reality in Black and brown communities. Biking is especially not an option for anyone if our streets are unsafe, or if you don't have the skills, the confidence, and the resources to sustain it. I am so thrilled that we have a mayor who's building a sustainable Boston for all, not only for what this expanded network symbolizes, but also because it's a sign that we will no longer continue to be strangled by the car culture that forces many folks in the Black community into poverty, leaving us trapped in a world where we continue to fight over resources. How can we use this moment to build a new culture in our city, one that ensures that biking is not just for the privileged, rather for everyone? Over the years, I've seen how access to bikes for myself and for so many youth in Boston has meant access to jobs, to friends, to adventure, to nature, and to joy. It's amazing to see the city invest in growing the network. We feel seen, and to us, this investment reinforces the notion that safety and accessibility is no longer an afterthought. I will say, though, growing the network is not the only type of infrastructure that we're in dire need of. In 1990, when youth violence in Boston was at a peak, Bikes Not Bombs created the Earn a Bike program, increasing access to biking, helping youth develop confidence, and curbing things like boredom and violence. In 1994, we opened a bike shop to provide essential services to the community. Can you imagine needing to repair your car without a convenient shop to go to? For cyclists, that is literally the reality in Roxbury, Mattapan, and Dorchester. Our bike shop in Jamaica Plain also hires graduates of Earn a Bike, providing for them training and jobs that helps them build essential skills for the future. Every neighborhood needs a bike shop to thrive. We need investments in making bikes affordable. We need investments in pathways to technical training and jobs. In the industry, we need access to capital to start new bike shops in neighborhoods that don't have one. I was so thrilled to hear the intention to build a new building for Madison Park High School. Imagine a future where there's a student-run bike shop there. That's what we hope for, and that's what we're working toward. I hope we can continue to create opportunities, just like we are today, to bring people together from all backgrounds and zip codes to support a more equitable and environmentally friendly Boston. The time to act is now. We have a true partner in City Hall. Together, we can reimagine the city of Boston in a big way. Thank you, Mayor Wu. Thank you all. And next up, I'm going to invite one of our amazing youth apprentices, Antonio, to share his story.
Hello, everyone. My name is Antonio Venus Reeves. I work for Bikes Not Bombs. The part of Bikes Not Bombs called BOCA. It's Youth Leading the Way. And my story is, I was born premature, 1 pound and 10 ounces, and I learned how to ride a bike before I can walk. And Bikes Not Bombs has taught me a lot. They've taught me how to fix bikes and basically bring it out into the world and teach others. Because there's lots of people that don't really know how to fix bikes, and I can show them the way. My fault, everyone. Oh, so as everybody here knows, riding bikes in Boston is not very safe, and I usually bike by Malcolm X Boulevard like every day, and the bike lane is not very safe. I've gotten into 2 accidents going down Malcolm X Boulevard and going the opposite way of Malcolm X Boulevard. What I want to talk about was like making the lanes maybe more large, because it's very small, and when there's also like groups of bike riders, sometimes we have to take over like lanes in the street, and you know, cars get very upset. And I just want us to, you know, have rights just like cars have rights. Bikes should have rights as well, because we matter too. I just want to leave you guys with just, sometimes just slow down when you guys are driving your cars. Just consider bikers too. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this rainy day. So I was asked here to share my story. It's a weird story for a bike activist. So I guess long story short, up until really recently, I was the bike advocate who refused to ride a bike. And I'm going to tell you why. So as a child, I was a ballerina and an athlete, and I messed up my knee really bad. Nobody told me that after gaining weight and having 4 kids that was going to probably mess up my knee. So I didn't ride a bike, but my 4 children rode bikes. And what I quickly came to realize after moving into the Codman Square area of Dorchester was that if I wanted to do my motherly duty and keep my children alive, riding on the streets in Codman Square was probably not the thing to do. So after design school, I was approached by someone in the city and 2 other community leaders and said, you would be great for this program called Healthy Community Champions. What is this Healthy Community Champion thing? I'm trying to find a job in an architecture firm. Well, we think that you would really be great for this program because, number one, you have a big mouth and you don't take no for an answer. And all of y'all that know me know that that is absolutely correct. So I did go forward with this program, and I realized that this was the one thing that was missing in my life, and that was engagement in my community and helping to make the streets safer. So the Healthy Community Champion was mobility-based, but it also became holistically health and wellness based. It was my colleague here, Vivian, and quite a few others around Vela. We were all a part of this program and helped and worked with the city of Boston to make streets safer for bike transit. What we soon came to realize is that we needed to shift the focus of infrastructure to people, and how that shift would impact how people received us. And so I want to say that bike infrastructure is absolutely necessary, particularly in neighborhoods of color. Riding is freedom, and we deserve that. So as one of the organizers for Ride for Black Lives, I believe that Black Lives Matter. I believe in racial justice. Climate justice is racial justice. Transit justice is also racial justice. It's our responsibility as active transit advocates and activists to make that thread and make that obvious to people. It's upon us. It's also, the onus is on us, advocates, people in the city government, all of us here, to help people in the neighborhoods that we're going into to understand the importance of changed infrastructure. We're not converging onto people's neighborhoods and telling them what they need, what's good for them, because we believe it or because we have a different life experience. We're going to engage community. We're going to talk to them about the benefits of improved infrastructure and how that safety will impact not just bicyclists, but also people who are walking. It will slow cars down. Just want to say one thing really quickly. In my neighborhood, the heat index is so high that you could fry an egg on the street on a regular day in the summer. So many people cut through and ride through my neighborhood to get to other sides of Dorchester. People ride through my streets so quickly that on some of the corners, it is not uncommon, especially in the summer, to see a car flipped over and you're waiting for a tow truck to come right it and move it away, and you're just really hoping that nobody's kid got caught underneath that car. I want to really express the importance of community engagement. We all here know and understand how important improved biking infrastructure is, but we also need to really understand that not everybody understands, and we need to make sure that they understand. So I'm really happy to say that in talks coming up to this point, Michelle and others, leaders in this movement of improved infrastructure, have a commitment to making sure that whatever neighborhood we go into, that we're making sure that folks understand and have an opportunity to also join in on the movement. I want to get back to e-bikes. Yay, e-bikes. Thank you for the changes that have come about so that e-bikes are now able to ride on the streets. I know I'm jumping around. I'm trying to make this fast. We also want to really think about the youth, people that ride bikes that have to get to work using bikes. We want to think about people who are disabled, and biking is a form of freedom for them. We need this infrastructure. We need change in our community, and we need to also help people understand how these infrastructure improvements will not just impact people being able to ride bikes. It's about freedom and it's about justice. You are. Oh.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vivian Ortiz, and I live in Mattapan, and I am the first People's Bike Mayor of Boston. I'm going to grab these notes. I will go off script often, but I just need to kind of keep myself on some kind of plan. When I was asked to speak this morning, I wasn't really sure if I was the most appropriate person to have done that. I went on a bike ride on May the 1st in New York City and spent what I call my bummer summer within hospitals and healthcare facilities because I had a fall while I was walking. It's very important for folks to know this is while I was walking, and fractured my shin bone in 8 places. I am so thankful and grateful, and I'm not going to cry, for my bike family, for all of the support that you guys gave me from a distance, from those folks that wanted to come and bring me back to Boston. It was really hard. I cried on Bike to Work Day because I should have been in Mattapan leading that bike ride with my friend Lee from Milton into downtown. But thank you so much for all of the pictures and all of the great events to keep me informed. Kim, every picture that you sent after a Women's Learn to Ride was really what kept me going. I came home 3 weeks ago. I am doing my physical therapy in Mattapan Square, and I'm getting around as best I can on this cane. I will be back on a bicycle. If you see me sitting on a blue bike that is docked in Mattapan Square, that is how I'm going to do my therapy to get myself back on my bicycle. I haven't even seen my bike since coming home. It is still safely being cared for in the basement of my friend in Quincy, but I will be back on it. When I started riding a bicycle, I was really scared. I fell in love with it. Just to let folks know, I attended one of the free Women's Learn to Ride clinics that the City of Boston has been running for several years. I was fortunate enough to have ridden a bike when I was a little girl, so it was just a matter of balancing. That program is what changed my life. I was one of the Healthy Community Champions, was advocating for more active transportation in my neighborhood, but wasn't comfortable riding a bicycle. I am originally from El Paso, Texas. I drove everywhere until I moved to the East Coast and was going to grad school in New York City. There was absolutely no reason for me to have a car. And then I moved to Boston. And what I like to say is that I still drive the way I was taught. And that's for the reason for not owning a car for 15 years. Driving is one of the most anxiety increasing activities that I choose to not participate in. And folks think, but you ride a bicycle. Well, I was fortunate enough that while I was part of the Healthy Community Champions program, and I had learned how to ride a bicycle through the Women's Learn to Ride clinic, I was also given the opportunity to become a league cycling instructor. A league cycling instructor is part of the National League of American Bicyclists organization that teaches people how to teach people how to ride on the street. Peter and Tiffany, and I don't know if there's anybody else in the room that is also a league cycling instructor, but that's what we do. We can teach you how to ride a bicycle, maybe, but we can definitely teach you how to ride it on the street, because we all have to be aware of our surroundings, and adding this infrastructure is going to make it better, but we as people on bikes also need to make sure that we are aware of what's going on. The other thing I wanted to mention, I attended as many group rides as I wanted to, because when I got on a bike, I absolutely fell in love with it. And so I did every possible group ride that there was, and everything that I learned from this community here. You are my bike family. You are the ones that have supported me. You're the ones, and I always mention that whenever I'm teaching somebody, I'm like, I didn't know this. Somebody else taught me this. So I think it's really, really important for all of us to be paying it forward. And then I remember the first time that you and I rode together was one of those peace rides that had been organized. And so we're very, very fortunate that our former city councilor and now Mayor Wu is an advocate for how the different modes of transportation that we use to be able to travel. I also became an advocate around that time and found that getting on a bicycle was not easy, but if you know me, I love talking to people. So my task for this group here, you have to talk to people about biking. If you know me, and if you have spent any time with me, every day I talk to somebody about biking. A lot of it started because when I first started riding a bicycle and I was afraid or tired or whatever to ride my bicycle from, my home to whatever the location was and back, I would put my bicycle on the bus. And I would be sitting on the bus with my helmet on my lap. And I could feel people staring at me, wondering, she rides a bike? Yeah, right. And since I knew they were looking at me, I just decided to say, so do you ride a bicycle? And first of all, they'd be like, wait, you're talking to me? I don't know you. And I would start talking about riding a bicycle. A couple of years ago, you may remember there was a campaign that was I Bike Boston, which was a partnership with the city, BPHC, and it also involved the Healthy Community Champions. So I was fortunate to be one of the 7 spokesmodels that was on that campaign, and it was to promote biking in neighborhoods where people are not thought to bike. We do bike, people just don't see us or choose not to see us. A lot of the challenges that we face as people that bike, Chevelle, Elijah, Tiffany, all of us that are up here, is that we are living in neighborhoods where people have fallen in love with driving a car. And so public meetings and talking about biking with communities that have, depended on, and I'm not necessarily blaming them, but just trying to get their minds to get open to the possibility that we all can travel however we want to, has been difficult. The best way for me to be able to engage with those folks is to take them outside. When the Cummins Highway pilot started, I invited electeds that were running for office to come to Cummins Highway and experience what it felt like to be on Cummins Highway and see the change. People that were waiting for buses, people that were riding bikes, People on the street didn't know why this was happening because we haven't engaged with them properly. But once we spoke to them, they thought it was the greatest thing. Talking to people that use those spaces not in a vehicle is where you find out how terribly difficult and dangerous and scary it is to navigate in this city. They appreciate the fact that infrastructure is coming. You don't have to ride a bicycle, as Elijah had said and other folks have mentioned, to appreciate these changes. Everyone will benefit from these. The Cummins Highway project will happen. American Legion is amazing now. I remember the first time I did Hub on Wheels and I rode on American Legion, I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. We did Mattapan on Wheels, the intermediate ride last year on American Legion, and it was absolutely wonderful for folks to be able to experience that space in a much safer manner. And Blue Hill Ave is our next project, okay? I ride a bicycle on Blue Hill Ave. I am confident riding a bicycle on Blue Hill Ave, but I am never comfortable. This morning coming on the rideshare was probably one of the most comfortable rides that I've had, honestly, on Blue Hill Ave. And also when we came up on Columbus, I asked the person, the Lyft driver, what he thought about the center running bus lane, and he said he loved it. I don't get that from people. I don't get that from people. It turns out that he lives in Mattapan. He rides a bicycle. I gave him my information. I told him about the Women's Learn to Ride Clinic. I told him I would be doing Monday night rides again in the neighborhood. I told him about the Dorchester Bike Kitchen and all of the spaces that people have in our community to get their bikes fixed, okay? We need to do that every day. And we need to do that with our neighbors that don't understand why we're adding all of this to our neighborhoods. We don't ride there. When I was in New York City, every day in the hospital, I spoke to somebody about biking. The staff, the medical team was not the best in communicating information, but that's for another day. And when I started talking to them about biking, when Dr. Shaw came in and said, Vivian, I'm getting new pedals on my bike this weekend, and people would come in and talk to me about biking, that kept me going. The number of staff, mostly women caregivers, that were not from this country, that did not ride a bike. Bike New York is going to see a huge amount of people riding bicycles now because I told them this is who you need to get in touch with because they will get you on a bike. If we're not doing that, it's only going to be us. Because I look around in this room and where are our community residents? Why are they not here? We need to be talking not only about biking, about walking. The infrastructure will make it better. Yasha will know. Riding in our neighborhood is not easy. When I invited him to ride up Blue Hill Ave, Cummins Highway, American Legion, and Morton Street, because I wanted him to experience what it was like to ride in my neighborhood so that when he came to these community meetings, he would be able to say, I know what it's like to ride there. I know it's difficult, and we're working on that, okay? A couple of other things that, I want to make sure, you need to ask yourself what you're doing to get more butts on bikes. If you have not ridden a blue bike, you need to make sure you do that. I think all of us probably have a friend or two that sometime during the pandemic got back on a bike, all right? Again, now with the Orange Line thing. If those folks go back to their other mode of transportation, mostly driving a car, we have not done our job, okay? Talk to that person and say, how is it that you regularly get to work? Where is it that you work? If you live in Mattapan and work in Dorchester, your butt better be on the Neponset Trail riding a bicycle to work. And you need to be talking to businesses about putting bike racks. I used to go to Sweet Life Bakery in Lower Mills and bring my bicycle inside of the restaurant because they did not have any bike parking. And thanks to my friend Jen over here, there is a rack in front of that business. They know who I am. The person that cooks the meal in the back rides a bicycle. I know that. When I came back in, they were like, oh my God, Vivian, what happened? So talk to people about biking. We need to have more family bike rides. We're doing so much advocacy for adults, and we need to have rides that are family. You need to slow down those rides. You need to make them calm. You need to work with organizations that promote biking with children so that we can make sure that the next generation
is also able to ride safely. When I went to my dentist last week, the person that was cleaning my teeth, I showed her the scar on my leg and told her what had happened. And I asked her if she rode a bicycle, and she said, no, I don't know how. She's signing up to go to the Women's Lunch Ride Clinic in East Boston, and she told me during our appointment that she was going to cry because she had been wanting to learn how to ride a bicycle for such a long time, okay? All of us need to be talking about biking. And one of the therapists at the clinic that I'm receiving PT at lives in Alston. He didn't know that there was an Aponsit Greenway right in Mattapan. I told him about the Blue Bike Station. He's going to start going out on his lunch break to explore that because he needs to get out because he's not comfortable riding his bicycle from Alston to Mattapan. I'm hoping to change that. The last thing is, while I was in the hospital, I had to receive 6 units of blood. There were complications because of an infection. And I never received blood. I was the blood coordinator at the hospital when I worked at El Paso for a long time. And every 8 weeks, we guaranteed that we would have 70 units of blood for the hospital that I worked in, which was a level 1 trauma center, which, by the way, that was I left that hospital in 2008. They were already. I need for the bike community to work with me because we need to have a blood. Boston and New York are the 2 places that I've lived in where I see that they're asking for blood. In other communities, voting and donating blood are just things they can do. We are a healthy community. I'm looking to see if maybe we can plan something at City Hall and seeing what we can do because you're not going to be able to ride your bicycle home to get us into that place, donate blood, and then provide transportation afterwards. And make this a regular thing because we can do it. You don't have to do it every 8 weeks. But it was extremely emotional for me because I never thought that I would need to. So look out for that. We'll start planning on that. And then just to let you know, this is a really busy weekend for biking. So biking and walking active transportation, if you're going to the NACTO conference, wonderful. We will be having a workshop at the trail on Saturday. It's full, so we can do it on one separately for folks that live here. And then Tour de Streets is taking place on Saturday. Bikes Not on Sunday. And invite someone to make sure to come out to Dorchester Ave for the Open Streets event that we're having next month. All right. Invite somebody that does not ride a bicycle to come out on this. Blue Bikes will be there. They will be able to ride. I've gone longer than I expected. I'm so happy to be home. Thank you for everything. Thank you, Mayor, Dasha, and everyone here for supporting the bicycle.
Thank you, Vivian. It's a real honor to follow 2 mayors, both Mayor Wu and our bicycle mayor, who, as you heard, is an amazing bicycle evangelist, Vivian Ortiz. I'm Kenzie Bach. I'm the District 8 City Councilor, so I represent this area here in Mission Hill, and I want to welcome and thank both everyone in the mayor's staff and all our incredible bicycle advocates for coming out today. And a special shout out also to the Boston Cyclists Union, which has their offices just a block from here. We're very proud to have them in Mission Hill. I just wanted to say 2 things briefly. One is when this is passed, so it doesn't count as electioneering. When the mayor first decided to support me running for city council, the only thing she asked me was whether I would support bike lanes around the common and the public garden. And I said yes, and we got them in the pandemic. I think they've been tremendous in a whole host of ways. One of them that's been mentioned here today is the fact that they've made those extremely popular pedestrian crossings shorter. And I think that's a really important piece of this, so it bears repeating, is that, as we think about slowing all of our streets, as we think about places like Hemingway Street in my district in Fenway, that's another place that folks race through, the opportunity to use both bicycle and pedestrian improvements complementary to slow our streets down is really important. But an unexpected benefit of these lanes around the common and the public garden is that my mom has started biking to work. A thing that she was not doing before, because my mom is one of the many people who only feel safe in protected bike lanes. And so those those protected bike lanes are now part of her route to work. She's figured out a route that's all protected bike lanes. It's longer than if she were, but she's figured that out, and now she sends me texts with suggested protected bike routes to the various places that she would like to go around the city. And sometimes she says, "Tell Michelle that we really need a connection XYZ." So I know she's going to be excited to read about this today, and I just want to emphasize that I certainly, when I was advocating for those lanes, was not thinking of my own mom as somebody who was going to use them. And so just remembering that, as you've heard today, the theme that a lot of people can use these lanes. A lot of people who might not be using them today will use them if they exist, right? That's part of the tricky work of civic imagination, is bringing things into being so that the people that use them can come into being, right? And I think that's just a really important thing here. And the other note that I wanted to add is just, as the historian on the council, I have the interesting honor, and I think about it a lot, of representing a lot of the oldest neighborhoods in the city, all of which were built before the automobile. And so the reality is that in many ways they are best traversed by foot and by two wheels or three wheels. They come from an era of carts and people walking and horses, which are probably not good right now. But I just want to emphasize that, to what Chief Jemison said, when you think about planning for a city that grows, and a city that grows together safely, some of you may know the trivia in the audience that Boston actually still has not reached its population peak again. So we peaked at 800,000, and we're now at 700,000. But it might raise the question for you, wait, if we used to be even more, why is it that we need more housing and we're having trouble fitting people in on the transportation network, right, for 100,000 down? Well, on the housing side is that we live in smaller family units these days. But on the transportation side, it's the fact that when we had 800,000 people, car ownership was not like it is today. And the reality is that as we think about how we fit more people into the city, but in a way where we get to be in compatible community together, like what is the city except one big ongoing experiment in living cheek by jowl together? We have to figure out ways that we bring people in without adding costs. And that's also super important for the people who do need four-wheel transit, right? That's the only way that we're going to get this done. So if you're somebody who relies on a car, if there's somebody who's handicapped, if you use the bus network, whatever, you need us to get as many people onto 2 feet and onto 2 wheels and 3 wheels as we possibly can. And the great news is that you live in one of the cities, perhaps the preeminent city in America, that was designed for it. And so I look forward to all of us working together to figure out again how we do that, and really how we, prioritize bringing pedestrian and bicycle safety hand in hand in all of these streets, including many of both the little streets that we have and the streets that today are too fast for either of the users to be comfortable. That's going to be a long and complicated, but also really exciting civic project, and I'm so excited by the beachhead that the mayor is